Okay, I think we talk a lot about Brian and his background and everything around data. I'm really really proud of having him here. I think you should be very very glad as well. So take advantage of this. If you go and call Brian to ask him questions in a regular day, he will charge you quite a lot of money for doing so. So yeah, I know. So take advantage of this. Be smart. Take advantage. And well, I'll leave you with Brian. Thank you very much, Brian.
Okay, so we're going to hope all this works well because it was not fun sitting back there, just looking at the back of his head, green plants. So we're gonna hope this works. I think the one thing we've all heard all day long, and sorry that I'm going to move here instead, so I can move around a little bit, how important culture is to the customer experience, to the data. Because at the end of the day, if the culture is not right, things fall apart. Guaranteed. And as I was listening to some of the questions and I was listening to the panel earlier, a couple of things came to mind. So number one, you look at companies like Disney, you look at companies like Ritz-Carlton that Jeffrey mentioned, right? What's kept them so customer-centric even after their founders left? How have they adapted as the digital disruption faced them? What's kept them so cohesive even today? And it's that passion for being, as in Ritz-Carlton, ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. Every single morning, their job is to go around and share the stories of how they've helped, help their customers. And one of my favorite examples, how many of you have ever heard the story of Joshi? Anybody? Nobody's heard the story of Joshi? Okay, so this is homework, sorry. I'm going to start you right away. You're going to do homework. You can go to Google, you're going to type in Joshi Ritz-Carlton. And basically, it's this kid who left his stuffed animal at the hotel. And instead of just worrying about sending it back to him, they took pictures of the stuffed animal in the spa, with all kinds of different places, and they just showed him what an incredible adventure he had while he was there. Now, just meeting expectations would have been returning it, right? But no, they'll jump on a plane to make sure someone gets their laptop on time. But the key that makes it work is next week, when they're all together in their meetings, they're telling those stories, right? They're telling a legend of how that service works. And it's so critical to make this work in order to really be successful. We're going to see if this is going to work today. Because as of now, it has not advanced at all. You're clicking. I've got a beautiful screen, just nothing. Just frozen. So Jeffrey and I have been up here, and as Juan told you, so, we've been doing this for a very long time. Skip the picture there. There it is. Okay. So that was Jeffrey and I when we first started in this industry. We've been at the data, customer experience, CRO, testing game now for almost 25 years. In 1993, 94, we were ready for starting our first sites, and I just not only looked at some of the SEO tactics from back then. How many of you remember Web Position Gold? Anybody? Oh, okay, okay. We can talk. But we also started realizing that if we made some changes to the website, we can increase sales. And by 1998, someone advised us that we should really focus on what we do best. Oh, you can keep it there for a second. What we do best, and in 1998, we opened the world's first conversion rate optimization agency. We have seen tens of thousands of tests. We have helped companies increase their sales by over $1 billion. And I'm not telling you that to boast. I'm telling you that because we've seen so much. And I just want to share a lot of what we've seen. And as you go through all these points, think about how each one of these are so impactful for the customer experience. Now, back when we first started, no, keep it there. He's got a happy finger. He's a happy finger. How many people remember that as the original Amazon homepage? So the funny part is, back then, Jeffrey and I were not fans of Amazon. In fact, we would have told you that they really had no chance of being successful. Now, we'd keep an eye on them, and we'd watch some of the tests that they were doing, and they were kind of interesting. But it was a few years later when I met my friend Ronnie Kahavi at one of the first eMetric summits that he started talking about how Amazon was doing over 200 tests a month. And that fascinated me because I've never seen a company able to do more than 3, 5, maybe even 10. Then some of the technology came out and we were able to do a few more, but 200 tests a month. Now think about that. How many of you can even get 200 initiatives done in your company, let alone 200 tests in a month? And Jeff Bezos, in his shareholder letters, talks about the 1,900 plus experiments they do every single year. So how do they do that? What's made them so successful? That's the culture. That's the 4 pillars that Jeffrey had spoken about earlier, right? It's having a culture that constantly believes in that always be testing mentality. Now you can click. So in our very early days, I'd written, I think it's probably my second or third article online about trying to explain conversion, because back then sales was a dirty word. Because I mean, how many of you remember? I mean, I'm sure he remembers. Boo.com and Pet.com, and people were just talking about traffic in the new economy. And you'd go in with a business plan, and they'd fund you the next day. And it was absolutely just crazy. Nobody thought about how important the sale actually was. And so back then we wrote, conversion rate is a measure of your ability to persuade visitors to take the action they want to take. It's a reflection of your effectiveness and customer satisfaction. For you to achieve your goals, visitors must achieve their goals first. It's a customer-first focus. You can click. Now, I'm going to go through this one quickly because Jeffrey mentioned it earlier. But as you start thinking about this, right, of the average conversion rates, right, average is about 3.32. Amazon converts Prime members at 74%. So why is that? And again, Jeffrey kind of alluded to it, so I'm going to kind of go through these kind of quickly, right, which is number one, right, which is secret number one. They compete on values, not value. It's the story of their brand, their company, about what they do to service their customers that makes the difference. It's not about the little dollars here and there, right? They're really understanding it's about why you're doing things. And you've got to have that culture for doing it. That's why Disney works. That is why Ritz-Carlton works. And that's why today we're now seeing Apple coming out with $1,000 monitor stands. What are they smoking in California? And Microsoft all of a sudden thriving under Satya Nadella, right? So the culture has completely changed. They understand, and everybody behind them understands that now we can have an open culture. So they're changing that. So the values matter a lot. Jeffrey talked about their growth. Interestingly enough, we're even seeing this now in organic search, right? Brands outside are, the outside influence of brands, the direct searches, are what's influencing rankings, right? So people are searching you out. So the brand certainly will buy you. It's why I always like to kid, Macy's still has a fairly high conversion rate. They only have one problem. You know what the problem is? Most of their customers are either dead or dying. But their brand stood for something, and those customers still believe it. The problem is you can't sustain it because the younger generation just doesn't see it. Next. They keep brand values in their brand voice. How many of you are in agency or brand side? Just curious. I know a couple of you, yeah. And I think this is a really important thing because so many companies don't have a unified voice. In fact, one of my favorite things to do any time a company calls us is I'll go ahead and I'll take a look at their social media. I'll do a couple quick searches. I'll subscribe to their email. And if things don't seem in alignment, I know they're not about the customer. They're about the division of the company that was responsible for putting out that piece of content. It's very simple when a company is unified around one voice. They usually use personas. We've seen that as a big habit, again, because it helps them wrap around who their customers are. And they have what we call brandable chunks. These messages that just keep showing up over and over again that we understand what the brand is about. So if you can click through. Some of you may notice I'm wearing an interesting T-shirt today. And there's a point to why I actually wore this T-shirt. So this is a company called Baseballism. Travis Chalk is the CEO. They're a relatively young company. In the last few years, now they're doing about $15 million in sales. They've opened up 8 stores and opening up their 9th store. And their brand is about, bless you, premium quality wear for people who love baseball. And so, of course, you'll notice a couple of these. I had to put this one up because it was actually kind of sad because last year I hit that point with my son where I can no longer catch his fastball, not without gear, kind of scared of it. And he just turned 14, just kind of put that in perspective. But what's so interesting, and the reason I chose baseballism as a great example of a company that's doing so well, and by the way, those are examples from their social media, is because what we're seeing with Amazon and the rest of the marketplace, you can see in parallel in the sports world. Whether you want to see it in soccer, right, football, you want to see it in football, you want to see it in tennis, you want to see it in baseball, technology and data has changed the game, right? We're seeing in basketball, right? Big change. We now have these cameras that are watching where everybody's going on the field and how fast they can get to certain places. And what's interesting is I'm a lifelong Yankee fan. My brother's the Met fan, but that's why he doesn't care about baseball anymore. It's June, so his season's over, right? It's usually by May? Yeah. I mean, I know you guys in Miami can relate. Sorry. No, but I'm gonna get to a good point. I'm gonna get to a good point for you Miami fans. But the Yankees have the single largest analytics department in all of baseball. So you would assume they'd always be at the top of their game, but they're not. Who constantly has been leading the last few years? No, not the Red Sox. No, they're two, because I'm talking about not just the World Series, I'm talking about overall just really dominating. You have to look at the Dodgers, and you'll have to look at the Astros. They're doing something different than every other baseball team out there. In fact, the Astros, at every single level of minor league baseball, they're winning their divisions. They also, in every single one of their divisions, lead in strikeouts. So what is it that they're doing so differently? There's a cultural difference. And in fact, we live right by the AAA affiliate of the Astros, and my son does a podcast, and he met with the GM, and he started talking about some of the things that they do that's so different, because they were with the Rangers last year. And it's a cultural difference. The Yankees stand for tradition. They're great, and we'll talk about it later in the analytics journey, at measuring things, at understanding that value piece, that first part of it. Very surface level. But what the Dodgers have done, who actually invested in starting an incubator for sports tech and for other things to improve their culture, right, is change the way they think about the game, the way they think about optimization. And that's one of the next levels of the analytics journey. And we're going to keep seeing this happen in sports. And unfortunately, we're still seeing a lot of companies still struggle with this most basic part. If you can click through. By the way, just some fun brandable chunks. If you haven't ever seen Chubbies, just some of the language they have. This is from some of their emails. You can click through for a second. I'll get another one for you. Subject line, whole bunch of characters. These are company. Konnichiwa, Chub Chachos. I'm Brang Bowers, the new mother friggin' CEO of the Chubbies Weekender. You're thinking, Brang Bowers, why the heck would you want to be the CEO of the world's handsomest, smartest, and most... And you can tell, they have a personality about them, right? How many of you get messaging, we'll just leave it like that, whether it's social media, search, email, from companies, print, that just has no personality? Like it could have been your average fifth grader who wrote it. If I took off the logo, it could be a zillion companies out there. Would you have any doubt that this belongs to Chubbies? No. Baseballism has a voice, okay? Amazon killed their voice. They just decided they weren't going to do one because they couldn't figure it out. 3, they obsess over understanding the customer. They obsess over understanding how the customer has to buy. Jeff Bezos, in the book, The Everything Store, says, we are not in the business of selling books. We're in the business of helping customers buy books. And it's that flip side of the equation of just constantly caring about data to understand who our customers are that drives every single bit of initiative. So as you keep looking through and obsessing over the customers, click through, we know, Jeffrey talked about the human operating system. This is an older example from Jakob Nielsen, where he actually looked at how people look at the U.S. Census Bureau website. And there are 4 basic types, the same as basic temperament theory, right? Well, which one of these can you tell is the most methodical type? Just real quickly. And you don't have to be a psychology expert to know this. bottom left. B, yes, right? Slow, looking at every single point in lots of details. That's the methodical. Now, we've used this kind of stuff. Go ahead. By the way, we'll come back to baseball real quickly. No, I'll tell you the example. There's a very big difference between the way men do eye tracking and women do eye tracking. So when you look at this image, men, women, get your first picture. I want you to see what women see first. Okay, you can see where they're fixated. Now let's look at where men are fixated. There you go. So never assume things about your customers. That's the first thing. So you sometimes have to have data to not just judge things based on your assumptions. Okay, you can click through. So personas help us build these predictive models, right? We want to accumulate data about our customers from what we first know about them, whether it's just their basic personality types, and as we get to know them, as we collect more data, till the point where we can get to personalization, right? We start developing more insights to basically create our imaginary friends. If people in your office are not talking about your customers as imaginary friends, you're not really being customer-centric. Because unfortunately, because we're so often in our business for so many hours, we have what's called a curse of knowledge, right? It's hard to step into their shoes. And so we use these to always ask, what would Jim do, right? If we don't know what Jim would do, then why are we doing it? How is he going to feel about this? Click through. Number 4, they maintain scent. This is a common principles. I think 1995, Dr. Ed Chi from Xerox PARC did research about how people navigate in cyberspace. It's always worked. It will always work. It's one of those things, as Jeffrey said, will work 10 years from now. We are information gathering creatures. It's the way we work. We're kind of like bloodhounds in the forest, okay? And so when we see something that interests us, right, when it catches our attention, that's the number one thing that we need to do today, we keep following it. So I want to show you this, and this is the brilliance of and by the way, when I show you some of these examples, some of them are old and some of them are new. And I only left the best examples to illustrate the points I want to get through. So you're going to see newer ones and older ones, but it's important to understand why we mix them. So here's the banner ad that I had seen for this sweater set, right? So imagine you see the banner, and you look at it, and you notice, of course, it's for Victoria's Secrets. You notice, it's this red sweater. They offer the free second-day delivery. And just down here, it says just $20 bouquet gift set. What's interesting about Victoria's Secrets is they were doing this by talent. I like to give you blueprints on how to do things. That's why I chose this shirt. It's all about having the systems, the processes to do these over and over again. Because how many of you have a hard time keeping really good people in your company for a very long time? Just about everybody does today. So if you don't have the legends, the systems in order how to do this, to plug and play, it gets very difficult. So let's watch what they did. Notice on the landing page, first of all, what's a boucle? Gentlemen, anybody know what a boucle is? I didn't know either. Ladies, you know what a boucle is? Okay, but I do know that here it says, how much? $20. What does it say here? Those are not the same thing. There it says sweater gifts. Is boucles and sweaters the same thing? I don't know. We all live in hot states. We don't know these things. Right? Also, just a quick notice, free second-day delivery is in pink and white on the landing page. What color is it on the banner? Red and black with white. So there's a confusion there. Now, of course, if you click through, and we can go to the next slide, you'll notice if you clicked on the image, it would take you to the page, and they're still promoting it. There's the $20 boucle set again, right? By the way, there it's $35, and it says just $20 with the offer code. So they're keeping this going. Now, when you go and you find other examples of this on their site, you can tell sometimes they get it right. And so this is what a perfect example looks like. Banner landing page. What's the similarities? Obviously, same logo. What's the color of the free second-day delivery? Pink and white. What is it on the landing page? Pink and white. What's the offer? Give me very sexy bras. The image, by the way, is not the same, but they're similar. Why? We got some brand people here. Why we want something a little different? Right. As much as we want to keep the scent, we know it's related, but now it's a little bit more interesting. Because if I click because of the product, which is what they're really trying to sell, now all of a sudden I'm engaged a little bit more. Does that make sense? And of course, as you click through again, now you see it on the top of the page, right, in the hero image, and of course you see the product right there as well. Everyone understand the concept of scent? So brand, image, offer, the category pages, you want to maintain this all around. Let's keep going. So there's a number of different scent cues we can provide. The hyperlinks we use, the trigger words, the offers, the graphics, the color, the shape, the location. How many of you have walked into a hotel and you know exactly where everything is because every hotel room is almost identical, right? And then all of a sudden they start switching things up like, how do I even turn on that shower? Anyone ever have one of those moments, right? Those are frustrating. That's friction. So what we're trying to do with scent is reduce friction for our customers. Next. Number 5, they understand the buying process. And this is where I think a lot of organizations struggle. And I've seen this a lot when all of a sudden parallax design started showing up everywhere. Everybody wants to do these one-page scrolling sites, and basically they sucked for conversion. They sucked for SEO, but they were pretty. So what changed? They focused more on the aesthetic than on accomplishing the task for the customer. How ugly is Amazon? How many of you would like to make kind of money that Amazon does? It's not about the aesthetic. It's about understanding how people buy. So one of the things I used to love about Land's End is when they used to sell their bathing suits, they used to have like all the different body shapes. Now, I just turned 49. Most of these I recognize. There's a couple I haven't heard of before. Star, rectangle, triangle, circle, and inverted triangle. I'm assuming, ladies, that those all mean something to you, but they don't mean for me. But for their customers, they explain each one and which bathing suits will work for them. And I think this is a great example if you're really trying to do this. Let me show you a more modern example. So I was on Instagram and I found this ad. Build and nurture your business relationships without ever doing data entry again. I'm like, okay, this sounds interesting. So I click through, I get to the landing page. It says increase your relationship IQ. I can tell this pseudo is kind of related. And it says, try with Google, try with Microsoft. It's basically like a CRM, right, that ties into your email. And I click through because if I'm inside Instagram and I try to log into Google, what happens? It breaks. And so I get that. And that's a dead end. That's friction. Guess what happened? Bye-bye. Gone. Let me show you a different example. Combin. So here they are. Here's their landing page from Instagram. They ask you to type in your email address, and then they tell you right away, email's on your way. We've sent you a reminder. Download Combin when you're back to your Mac, Windows, or Linux. Go to check your email box. They understood where people were in their journey, right? Simple as it. This is a technology awareness, but also where they are in terms of understanding what they're trying to purchase. Next one. They plan the complete journey. Because this is one of the things that frustrates me. Obviously, these people understood scent, right? You see the banner, you see the landing page. We can all tell they're related, right? They're pretty similar. So Geico makes it easy. Geico could save you hundreds on car insurance. Just fill in your zip code. You put in your zip code. What would we expect to see on the next slide? Huh? An offer, right? We'd get to see kind of what we're saving, right? Because they're saying, you know, it's that easy. So let's go in, put it in. And now we get to that page. You're shaking your head. So what happened? Who owned the banner and the landing page? Marketing. And who owns this? I call this BPUs, business prevention units. Some of you call it IT, right? There's a complete disconnect, right? And so in order to be successful online, you need to actually start from the journey at the end, right? What does a successful journey look like? Would you have planned that banner and landing page based on this experience? Would it have been the same thing? No. And unfortunately, every single time we do this, it's like a grinding halt to their customer experience, right? It just kills it. Next. By the way, we do this all the time in physical retail, all over the place. Start paying attention for those things. As Jeffrey said, the journey is very complicated today. But we really need to start from the very end in mind and then work our way backwards, detail to detail. Click through. So here's another Instagram ad. How many of you have seen, for a while I was being bombarded by these ads from Harry's Razors. Right now they're in Target and all that. And I saw this ad, now mind you, the way Jeffrey looks today is the way I usually like to do. I don't shave every single day, thankfully. So I don't shave very often. So to subscribe to a shaving service just didn't make a lot of sense to me. But I saw this ad, and I said, oh, this is kind of cool. The picture kind of caught my attention. So I clicked through. I saw it on Instagram, I saw it on Facebook, and I got to the landing page. Now, how's the scent from the banner ad to the landing page? Pretty decent, right? Let's keep clicking through. I go to the next step. It tells you how often do you shave. Okay, great, I picked that. It goes to the next step. You can pick your plan. You go to the checkout. Same thing, they're kind of throwing it. But what got my attention in the first place was that little cube that the photographer decided this would look awesome in the ad. But guess what they never offered in any step of that whole checkout process? That stinking cube. And so they lost the sale. Every detail matters in the customer experience. You can't take anything for granted. Next slide. So our number one job, as Jeffrey mentioned earlier, is to remove friction. What great companies do, like Amazon, like Disney, right? How many of you have been to Disney before? You ever notice the trash pails, right? They're never completely full, they're never completely empty. Because if they're empty, you feel guilty throwing something in there. So there's always a balance. So they built a whole system just about removing the friction from that part of the experience. It's really important to understand this. And so like when we were working with Frames Direct, how many of you have bought glasses online? I'm curious. Okay, what's one of the biggest challenges when you buy glasses online? That's one big part, and there's a second big challenge. You wear prescription glasses? Do you always have the prescription with you? No. And the problem with most of the glassware makers we're selling is you had to give them the prescription, and then they show you which glasses would actually work for you. And we're like, this doesn't work. This is the friction point. So we said, okay, let's give them the option. I'll send it in later. Don't worry, we'll get your prescription after the order is placed. Because there's an old sales principle, and again, as much as we want to be customer-centric, we still got to pay the bills, called GTC. You know what GTC stands for? Get the cash. So I let you go through the process telling you that you can send it in later. No problem, fill it out. Let's say you picked a frame that did not work with your prescription. When you speak to the ophthalmologist on the phone afterwards, when they're confirming everything, they'll tell you. And guess what? They'll help you pick one that will. And in the meantime, they still have your money. And where are you still buying it from? It's just this constant mindset that there's always friction. We always have to find ways to reduce friction. That also increases people's motivations. Number 8. I still got to go through 13 more, so we're going to pick up. Just be ready. Provide point-of-action assurances. We also call this micro-copy. It's the little bits of messaging, especially ones that have great brand character, that have huge impact. Of course, the flag is taking up my latest one. This one kind of shows it's really cool. Right by the checkout, and I've said this for years, it has the ratings, it has when it ships by. Again, just to remind people, don't worry, no credit card is necessary. No credit card is necessary, right? All of this copy here. All these little things make a difference in terms of easing that friction or increasing their motivation right when they're ready to take action. Right, well, we like to say at that point of action, provide them with those assurances. If you can click. Land's End, other great examples. They've always had this for years and years and years, right in the checkout. This is one we did for a company that does motorhome parts, RV parts. Again, just throwing it in there. This is one we did for a B2B, right? If you came here and you weren't ready to fill out the form, we actually told you who you were going to be speaking to, and you gave you his phone number and his email address, and of course it increased leads and conversion. Let me not trip. Next slide. How many of you like going to the Department of Motor Vehicles? So why is it that we make web forms look like they came from the Department of Motor Vehicles? We're so worried about everything else looking pretty, but we get to the checkout process, like the Geico example, and it's frightening. So why can't we do things just to make web forms just a little bit more engaging, adding a little splash of color, adding some arrows and some point-of-action assurances, breaking them up in a certain way? Click through. Or as one of my favorite examples, and checkout process still has not changed. We published this case study of Cafe Press in 2005. Back then, when they started with us, they had a 65% abandonment rate? 35%. They had a 35% abandonment rate, which is pretty incredible because the average is about 65. And we were able to bring it down to a 15% abandonment rate. How many, if you're dealing with an e-commerce site and they have a checkout process, steal this, just copy it. I mean, we've modernized it a little bit, but for the most part, the process just works because every little detail's been taken care of to assure them and move them through step by step. They make persuasive and relevant offers. You've got to get people to take action sometimes, right? So again, you don't want to get them overly addicted to constantly having to do offers, but you got to make sure they're prominent. You want to make sure they know exactly what they're trying to buy. It's part of what we call our conversion trinity, right? They need to understand what's relevant to them and why they're buying. So in this example, in Overstock, you know, here's the President's Day sale. You can save up to 70%. You click through. They continue talking about it on their category pages. You click through. You see they continue it on their product pages. But now you go ahead and you click through and you've added it to your cart and the offer disappeared. This is that scent principle. We want to keep showing this over and over again because, no exaggeration, we've seen this in hundreds of usability tests. People actually forget what they saw on the screen previous. And all of a sudden they don't see it and they're like, oh, well, did I get the credit? Did I not get it? So you've got to make sure to include every single step of the way. Keep going. Number 11. They think beyond what we call crackvertising, talking about going too many offers. I'm very excited that Instagram and YouTube are talking about removing likes and all that, a lot of those metrics, because we've gotten so caught up in a lot of these engagement metrics that we forgot to realize that it really is about the customer and sales and all that. And so we're missing things. And I mean, these are ads that we've seen in the wild from Google. I mean, like, why would anyone put out these ads? Well, a machine did it, but people are paying for it, right? I mean, how many of you would like to buy some used diapers? Or now that you can buy get your wife on eBay. Maybe that's a new business model. Dirty underwear, that's the one. The problem with a lot of the CRO industry and a lot of the books that are out there is they really focused in on pages. Pages don't exist by themselves. They are part of a stream of connected journey that starts from, as we showed you, the scent trail. And you need to understand the context of every single click in order to get there. And this is where a lot of teams just get disconnected. And this is why, when you think about a Disney, every little thing goes perfect because they've worried about where every element shows up, right? Even where, there's little Mickey ears all over the place, right? Just to kind of surprise and delight you because they realize those things matter. And it's the same thing in the digital environment, the same thing in the retail store. We need to think past the optimization process. And we're actually both Jeffrey and I are kind of frustrated that after 25 years of doing this, everybody would love to say they have an optimization process that looks like this high-end vehicle that you see driving all over Miami. We see some Teslas in Austin, a couple of Maseratis, but not very much, not like here. But in reality, this is what most people in the industry actually have today. The little Mazda Miata with the helmet on just so he doesn't eat bugs. So we've got to have this culture of always be testing. So how do we get that culture? Scott Cook talks about the role of today's leadership is to remove the speed bumps in the experimental's way. He's talking about friction again. So we talked a lot about already friction from the customer's perspective, but there's two parts of friction. There's friction that your customers experience, but there's also the friction that your employees experience. And if they're frustrated by something, guess who feels it? Your customers. And so we always have to understand, this is why the culture is so important. Two things we always need to focus on: reducing friction internally and externally, and increasing motivation internally and externally. Click through. The companies that do the best optimization tend to do more tests, more experiments. Again, like Amazon, who's doing a couple hundred a month. Keep clicking. They have a structured approach, right? They don't do this haphazardly as a project. It is part of their culture. Keep clicking. 89% with structure report improvements in conversion, right? Those who have a good structure. Next slide. 12. They use a variety of methods. Again, they're obsessed with finding ways to identify that friction and reduce the friction. They're constantly looking for things, whether it's user testing, whether it's heat maps. There are multiple levels at dealing with conversion. Click through. One of my favorite slides of all time. Joel Spolsky said, usability is not everything. If usability engineers designed a nightclub, it would be clean, quiet, brightly lit, with lots of places to sit down, plenty of bartenders, menus written 18-point sans serif, and easy to find bathrooms. But nobody would be there because they'd all be down the street at Coyote Ugly pouring beer on each other. This comes back to the brand. What's the values? What are we standing for? So it's not always like, sometimes you do have to put friction because the friction is part of the experience, but you have to balance it with what the brand is. And this is a critical part that a lot of people struggle with. Again, so this kind of shows all the different methods that people are using and the percentages that they're doing it. And again, everyone's focused on A/B testing, but not focused in on all the other methods that really matter. And those who have more methods, those who focus in on more segments, have higher conversion rates. It's pretty much that simple. Next slide. Number 13, they use persuasion principles. Since Robert Cialdini wrote his book, The Psychology of Influence, there's been a few others and updates to it. But there's little things that you can do, right? Scarcity, reciprocation, authority, consistency, consensus, liking, and also as well community, right? On how to get people doing this. Well, this has always been one of my favorites. The steal of the day, remaining quantity. 15, hurry there, 653 people shopping now, right? Little things that persuade people to take action. Click through. Lagniappe is a great way, right? Give something a little bit extra. So when we lived in New York, Fresh Direct would every so often just surprise you with some bonus fruit just to kind of thank you for your business. Or Digital Marketer who sends these stickers, right, and a nice little postcard when you become a member of Digital Marketer. Again, the little things, especially if you're an online business, to have something offline matters a lot, right? Never forget how important that physical touch really is. They display authority. I'm not an expert in headsets. I assume none of you are expert at headsets. So when I'm at a headset site, they can tell me which is good, better, and best. Right? That's what I'm counting on them for. Next. Make your products more persuasive. There's no more interesting conversion category than the flower category. I've got to tell you. Am I right, Jeffrey? With all the clients we've ever worked with, and we've worked with 1-800-Flowers, we work with Pro Flowers, we've worked with a bunch of these. Flowers is a very interesting beast. In terms of how people, and gifts, right? How people buy. And if you know Pro Flowers, the way they get to you is they just come in a box and all the flowers are in there and you have to decorate them. But when they show that, if they showed that in the picture, well, how many people would buy it? Right? Most wouldn't buy it. So you can make it a little bit more persuasive by making it a little more engaging. I see this as well as companies selling on Amazon today. They take their product, they put their picture on there and they hope they sell. Instead of having a more descriptive kind of picture that kind of put things in context. Next slide. Number 14, they don't do slice and dice optimization. Just because you can test doesn't mean you should test endlessly. Jeffrey mentioned earlier when the discussion when we were working with Overstock. I think Jeffrey got off the phone with him, it was, 2:30 in the morning when he first contacted us. I wake up at about 4:30, 5 o'clock. I see the email. They gave us all the access to the analytics and all that, and we start looking at this page. Number 2 most traffic page on the site. They were losing, I think, over 60% of the people who came to this page. 92% of the people came to this page. We improved to 62. And they had 2 testing tools. They had a staff of statisticians testing this. And the way they kept on doing this is, if you click through, they basically cut up every section of the page and they moved it all around, right? Traditional multivariate A/B testing. The problem was they couldn't make a difference to the page. And it was the second most trafficked page on their site other than their homepage. So we went back and we looked at the page and said, okay, let's ask about, we don't know a lot about their customers, but let's start with the 4 basic personas. So when you look at the page, what do spontaneous people care about? They look for top sellers and new releases whenever it comes to movies. They do a good job with that. Humanistics, they care about reviews. Now, Overstock had hundreds of thousands of reviews on their site, but to get it on this page would involve bringing in BPUs. No, thank you. We said you can do that later on. Methodicals, they can find by genre. That's the way they like to look, right? Remember, they look at every part of the screen. And so underneath that search box, there's a link there, browse by genre. They would have found it. But lastly, it was the competitives that like to search by actor, by title. They're in, they're out. They just want to see if they can find it. And there's a design principle, convergent design principle called proximity. Whenever you put two things together, what do you assume they are? Related. So what did people think when they were going to the search box that they were looking for? Kids titles. So he said, Patrick, all we need you to do, this is next morning, all we need you to do is change that one graphic. That one graphic was that $25 million bullet that we were able to give them. One change accounted for 5% lift to their top line sales. It was an obvious point of friction, right? Not all of us have that big obvious ones, but that was an obvious one. Not to them, right? They had tested it over and over again. Again, but when you took it from the customer point of view, it was very obvious to see what it was. From their point of view, they don't understand why it wasn't working. Does that make sense, everybody? Next slide. Amazon does this as well. They test for impact, not variations. So when they wanted to change the way the layout of the pricing information and everything showed up, click to the next one. They tested making it larger, in stock in green and larger, right, separating it. They don't test countless number of variations. They test something big. Does it have an impact? And if it does, then they can tweak it with their brand guidelines to make sure it works, and then keep it within their perspective. Next click. So this comes back to what I mentioned earlier, our conversion trinity. Whenever you're trying to improve an ad or trying to improve a landing page, an email, it has to meet the conversion trinity. Number one, is it relevant to your customer? Which persona, who's it relevant to? You might not be relevant to everybody, but is it there one specific? And by the way, if you try to be relevant to everyone, guess what happens? You're relevant to no one. So pick the one that you want to be relevant to. Focus on them. Go obsess over that one customer. What's the value in it for them? Everybody's got their own favorite radio station. Everyone know what it's called? WIIFM. What's in it for me? What's valuable to them? And then lastly, call to action. And I'm not talking about just the click. How are you building the confidence in order for them to take that action? Every single time, whether, like I said, it's a social ad or a paid ad, Facebook, it doesn't matter. Just ask yourself these three questions. Ask your team these three questions, and you'll find opportunities to improve every single one you do. Number 15, today we're battling for people's attention. How many of you are spending less time on Facebook than ever before and moving more towards Instagram? How come? Not full of politics, not full of people complaining. We just enjoy spending time there because it's mindless. So we're battling for people's attention. So we have to do things to capture their attention if we want to get sales. And so this is our friends from Jigsaw Health, the #1 rated magnesium on Amazon as well. And they do things like the TP2000 with a leaf blower, with a toilet paper where they go around and they'll go into other people's offices and shoot them. And again, these videos are just super engaging. As our co-author wrote, people will give you their time when you offer them entertainment, but people will give you money when you offer them hope. And so we need to do things to capture their attention. So let's look at a couple of them. So this is a great example from Supercuts. This is some of their advertising on YouTube. When you click through, Jeffrey, go ahead and play it. I don't think we need the volume to it. Oh, we've got some volume. But notice, we could have had a generic ad for sports clips on YouTube. What makes it more relevant to the people seeing it? What's changed it? Look closely. And all those different ads. What's changing? The location, right? Because if we can target by location, why shouldn't we tell them where the location is in the ad? And so they're using a company called Sightly that goes ahead and personalizes all those ads, so it gives them that specific location. Now it becomes a little bit more relevant. Every little data that we can extract to make it more relevant, that's what we want to do. Everyone understand this? Next one, Tuft and Needle. This is an automated video. This is created by their social stream.
Hi y'all, it's The decision was immediately.
But ever since we've had a tough little mattress, it's just really helped my posture.
If we don't love it, they have all these great guarantees, so we'll just cut it back. I love it.
Thank you, Dr. Nino!
And what you can see is how fast they've grown with that type of content and getting their community involved, right? Next slide. Number 16, they engage across channels, but they realize money is in the list. It's one of the things I had a great conversation with Travis Chalk from Baseballism. So they built their business on Facebook. Hundreds of thousands of followers on Facebook. And what did Facebook do? Turned it off. Now it's pay to play. So now what are they doing? They're building it on Instagram. Again, hundreds of thousands of followers. But what does Travis know? You can't count on that. That's rented property. So what does Travis have? An email list of 400,000 people who love baseball. That's where the money is made. By the way, you know what's even made now, even showing up even more than just email? Can you get their number to text them and value that relationship and only use it once in a while? So like the gym that my son trains at, we've moved everything towards text because all the kids are not looking at email, but they're very careful when they send it. Again, it's valuing that relationship above all else. They've earned that trust, but they know that's where the money is always at. By the way, love the way these guys did a landing page, because how many of you know you put in an email for something, they never see it, it's gone, never gets confirmed. So they actually tell you that, right? Check your email, check the spam, now you can get your reports. So they're just reinforcing that on the landing page. They understand the journey, right? Not just a thank you page, and that's it. 17. I'm not going to beat this one too much because, of course, Jeffrey spoke about this significantly. They're making decisions not based on the hippos, but based on customer reality data. Next click. But here's the thing. How many of you have way too many reports, too much data, too much information? Right? We're all suffering from that today. What should happen from your analyst with all that data and with a small team is you need to create to-do lists. That's the value of data. It's not the data itself, okay? Data's like puke. It's not really going to do anything. You just got to find the good stuff inside of it. So let's try to create a to-do list. What will you do when X equals Y? What are you going to do? What part of our marketing efforts or sites have friction points? How do we address them? Let's identify all of those. What do you think needs to be improved? What things would you want to test? What efforts you should do less of? What efforts you should do more of? You can keep asking these kind of questions. It's part of your culture. And when you start focusing on turning data into that leads into actions. Actions express priorities. Data is just data. 18. They do what my friend Avinash likes to call faith-based initiatives. I'll admit here, when we wrote this in our book Call to Action, we were completely wrong about the way Amazon approached things. So as you click through, and you'll notice these are all different variations of the add to buy area on the Amazon product pages. So this is about 1997-ish. You can notice, by the way, they have the lock on there. Shopping with us is safe, guaranteed. Add to shopping cart. You can always remove it later. And it progresses over the years where now they added one click. They added their marketplace, a bigger focus on marketplace. They added A9. They changed into to add even more options, all their wish list. And then they completely changed their design. And when we looked at this, we said, you know, and by the way, I still remember as clear as yesterday, the day they removed the lock from their add to cart button, and all our clients were telling us, well, Amazon removed it, should we remove it as well? And we're like, no. Here's the weird thing. We thought Amazon was, first of all, not every single one of these tests was successful just for conversion's sake. If you actually look at all of these tie back to one of their big ideas. So the first one click, right? How important was one click for them, right? The second one was they were offering a marketplace. Big ideas. And testing wasn't about, oh, does this button work better than the next? It was, here's a business idea. Will it work out in the long term? And will we suffer a big loss if we make these changes? How will customers start accepting this? And so each of these were really faith-based initiatives. Just so you know, there's nothing on the Amazon product page above the fold that you're allowed to test without Jeff Bezos' permission. That's how well optimized they are. So when to do something like this meant big idea, not simple A/B test. Next slide. 19, they budget for experience. Go look at the budgets of a company. When we talk to companies and we ask them to start telling us, okay, where's your marketing spend? And we start going through things, and we're like, so where's the budget for the copywriting, for the usability test? And we realize that they're not going to be successful. The most successful companies have a budget for this. They focus on this science of customer experience, of identifying friction and increasing motivation. Next slide. They utilize a system for prioritization. There should be a queue of thousands of great ideas in your company, thousands of ways to reduce friction, thousands of ways to motivate your customers, but you can't do them all. And so this is one from our earliest clients where, when we worked with Dell, where we realized that we gave them a report of all the things they needed to improve on their website. Literally, it was about that thick. They made one test, this one test. Right in the shopping cart as you were configuring your computer, they used to have the words, learn more, and we said, hey, you're the expert, show some authority. Just change it to help me choose. Millions and millions of dollars. Not one thing changed after the click. But those words had a big impact. But they taught us one key thing, and that's the best thing about clients, is they actually make you smarter. And he said, well, I had to pick of all the tests, what would be the easiest one for me to do? Which one took the least amount of resources? Well, to change that, anybody could go in and do that. That didn't require any resources. The time it took to do that was literally seconds. I didn't need a copywriter. I didn't need a designer. I didn't need anything. It's just done. But if it worked, what's the impact? Everybody who purchases has to go through that process. And so we were able to see an impact right away. And of course they did. And so we use this process of time, resources, and impact and multiply those to decide on what works and what doesn't and what you should test. Next slide. We're almost there. 21. We talked about it earlier. It's about culture. It's about a mentality. You know why Amazon does over 200 tests every single month? Because they out-execute every single company in the world. Ultimately, that's what Jeff Bezos and his culture does better than everyone else. They just get, what's up the Brooklyn technical term? Shit done. Their leaders have their own responsibilities, their own technology, their own cross-functional teams, and they just find ways to get things done. The day Michael Jackson passed away, they reconfigured their MP3 store in 2 hours. And if you think about that, they have a Q&A process that once you make a change, it has to go to India, they have to approve it, and that process alone takes 2 hours. That means they had to have everything ready from day one. What significant event could happen tomorrow that could impact your business? And are you ready for it? Most of you are probably like, no, right? They were ready for anything and everything, and that's the whole point. They find ways to do it. They have processes to be more agile. Some of the processes we talk about in Be Like Amazon, which is they write those 6-page memos. Those memos are their minimum viable product. They let people describe everything in so much detail, and then everybody can run because everyone's in alignment about what needs to be done. That's the culture that changes things. It's the stories that the Ritz-Carlton shares. It's the legend that Disney has year after year after year. It's not difficult to change the culture if you understand how to do it. Look what Satya Nadella has done at Microsoft. And it's not going to happen overnight. Next slide. But if you start making the changes, small changes every single day, as my good friend Joe Ferraro has a great podcast called 1% Better podcast. What if you got 1% better every single day? So to come back to baseball, what's so different about the Astros? They work every single day to make their players better. I was talking to James about it earlier. I've never seen this in any ballpark, and like all my friends who are professional coaches have never seen this. At the AAA level, they have laser timers out on the field, in the outfield, and all their players are running patterns, what they call their regular 60-yard dashes, and measuring that time because they're trying to make them better at that every single day, at that level of professionalism. And they do that through every single one of their levels. Their culture thinks about developing their product, their people, better than every other organization out there. That's the 1% better. That's the compounding interest. Amazon was not that much better than everyone else. They've just been focusing on this process day in, day out for 20 plus years. And it just shoots up. Continuous optimization is a byproduct of caring about your customers. That's all it is. And that culture piece has to start with the customer. Next slide. And of course, it's not going to change right away. But imagine if all of us decided, instead of hanging out here, by the way, it could be crocodiles, it could be bears. I mean, you guys are more partial to crocodiles down here. And we're out and we're all having a picnic lunch, and all of a sudden we see a crocodile show up. I don't have to be the fastest person in the room. You don't have to be the best competitor in the room. What do you have to be? Just faster than at least one other person. And so you don't have to be the best today, but you have to commit to getting faster and faster and better every single day. Next slide. Going back to one of those first articles. Back then I wrote it, and it's still true today. Most websites don't have a traffic problem. We get plenty of tens of hundreds of thousands of visitors every single day. Most who never buy. Most who just get frustrated with all kinds of friction you put in the journey and don't do anything. However, every website has a conversion problem. So we've got to focus on improving that every single day. So I'm going to give you 5 quick tips, I'm kind of ended on here, on what you need to do to have great conversion rates. So number 1, dive deep to design around your persona's perspective. It's got to start with the customer. Think about the journey from the end, go forward. You have to align marketing, sales, and operation to reduce friction in the customer experience. I just wrote an article on LinkedIn, Our Jobs as Marketers. How many of you are traditionally trained marketers and were taught about the 4 Ps? I think today we need to make it 6 Ps. The 5th one being people. We need to own people. We need to own the data about people. And the last one is the path to purchase. It was never our responsibility, but today, because everything's so connected and we're interactive, we need to own that piece, or else we're never going to be successful. So we've got to have one person who's in charge of all of it, or else we get friction points and the disconnects that we've seen today. Number 3, we have to design a customer experience to increase motivation from your customer's goals backwards. How do we achieve the end point all the way going forward? Prioritize your to-do list by time, resources, impact. There's a couple of other ways you can play around with, but that generally works. And then execute regularly over and over and over again. Really is not that much more complicated. That's your blueprint to take home. Any questions? I know I've just fire hosed you with like 78 slides, but hopefully you've gotten some good information out of there.
Let's take advantage of having here Bryan. Bryan, thank you very much for your presentation.
I'm very excited to be here
very
again.
enlightening as always. I have a lot of questions myself, actually.
Go for it. Go for the first one. Break the ice for everybody.
Yeah. So the main point here is, it's like we had to fight against 2 different things. One is like vision, and one is operations. It's like trying to run and tie your shoes on the same time, right?
Yep.
So how you deal with that? Yeah?
How hard is that?
I don't know.
So
Show me.
So I started the presentation exactly that. The vision's about your values. If everyone's aligned around the right values, the vision takes care of itself, and you could just worry about operations. The problem is, right, no one at Ritz-Carlton has to figure out what their job is. Their job is to make sure to serve the ladies and gentlemen that show up at the Ritz-Carlton. And they have $2,000 to solve any problem that shows up. You call into Zappos, right? How many of you have ever been purchased from Zappos? Curious. How many of you have had to deal with the call-in center? Anybody? Yeah, you have? You notice that their call center is very different than any other call center you've ever called in your life? You didn't pay attention to it? If you ever go on the tour in Las Vegas, one of the key things they tell you is they never rush people off the phone. They're happy to talk to you as long as you want. How many of you have ever worked in a call center? You know, the number one thing that they tell you is the what? How fast you can hang up on people. So why is Zappos the complete opposite? And it's why Amazon purchased them, by the way. Because it's about the customer. They're collecting data while they're speaking to you, but in a human format, not by the click, right? And they have a culture there about making sure that the customer's taken care of. And so you've heard stories of them sending pizzas, of sending all kinds of things, just to create that magical experience again, because they know that over the long term, things will take care of itself if you're aligned around the proper values. The key is execution and doing it every single day. That has to be part of the culture. And how many of you can't even call a meeting in your office in 2 hours? Seriously. Can you call a meeting in 2 hours and get everyone to show up? No. We've looked at this like with 1-800-GOT-JUNK. Every morning, every department, including their franchises from all over the world, they all get in on what's called a huddle. And everybody communicates, all the metrics are there. Why? Because it helps the company have that transparency to know how we need to just worry about what's being done today.
It's interesting because that can be built that way because you have the vision or because you need to. One of the things you and I know exactly is because we work in consultancy is that in our business, if you don't deliver value, you lose your client. So basically, it could be vision or it could be just because it's the only way it could be, right?
Yes, but it has to start from the vision point of view. People want to work with you and be part of your community, especially today when we're competing for attention, right? I think it has to start there. And unfortunately, the reason we're seeing so many companies and especially retailers go bankrupt is because they all look identical. If they all look identical, why do we need them?
Well, one of the interesting points is the lack of personality you was mentioning convert the companies somehow in kind of commodities, right?
Yeah.
Or
I mean, I can buy a T-shirt on Amazon for $8, but I spent $30 at Baseballism because the shirt means something to me, right? So not only is it about my passion for baseball, but of course it has the words legend on there and buyer legend and gives you the blueprint. So it had additional meaning. And so we're looking today, this is part of where our society is, we're looking for those additional points of meaning. And so as employers, it's a hard thing, especially as we're seeing millennials joining our job and even younger, right? I mean, my daughter's just off to college, getting her first real job this summer, and she looks at things completely differently. Like Lush. I mean, Lush didn't take care of her. I think she's been back there twice, and she was going every month, right? Because all of a sudden, well, you tell me you care, but you don't act it. Goodbye.
it's interesting. One of the information that we saw in the video about meaningful brands said that like 58% of the people believe that the content was not meaningful for them. So we have more data than never before, but the content is not meaningful. So where's the problem there? I mean, because the companies, they are interested in making money,
Because
right?
we're focused in on the click and the few engagements and just getting stuff out there instead of focusing in on connecting with our customers. Like, I encourage, even if you don't love baseball, you could just see what they put out every single day just to see why they're in touch with their customers. It's going to put a smile on your face. Like, you know, seeing the mom, like, how many of you are baseball fans? I'm just curious. Okay. Now, for those of you who are not baseball fans, when you saw that her shirt that said 6, 4, 3, plus 3 equals 2, did you look like, huh? But those of you who are baseball fans, all of us know exactly what that means, right? That's the insider language that they use. And what's fun about Baseballism, and he kind of shared this little story, they'll put up a graphic that they're experimenting with, and they'll put it on Instagram. And they know as soon as they get a couple of comments and about 100 likes, that'll account to 1,000 shirt sales. So they now can predict what the next level of sales will be. And this is part of the analytics journey, and I meant to actually put this in the slides, is where so many people are stuck is what's happening. We're still struggling with, we have all this data, what is it telling us? Not how to happen, how to make things happen, or what can we do to cause things to happen. And Baseballism is now at a point where they know they can design something, they just pick a little slogan, test it, boom, great, new product. That's the way businesses should run, and unfortunately, that's a data-driven business. Most struggle with getting even close to that level of execution. And how hard is it to create a graphic a day? Not complicated, but they create a few, they put one out, figure out which one they feel is going to resonate the best, and boom, they know whether they have new sales or not.
No questions?
How many of you are still
Don't
hungry?
be shy. No questions. You're tired, apparently, right?
I think it's the food kind of settling in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Food was supposed to be at the end,
Yeah.
and I now understand why. But no questions?
Well, thank
Okay,
you very
I think
much
we're
then.
closing, right? Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, we are finishing a long day. I gotta say, I'm really proud of the kind of content you brought here. I think it was different. We're talking at the beginning about security. I think we are one of the first companies in bringing the topic to the table. We are just talking about the data for conversions and that kind of things. But at the end of the day, the main point, the connecting point was culture. It's incredible that we were all agree on that. 5 years ago, 10 years ago, nobody was talking about the data situation as a cultural problem. It was like, we need more talent, we need more mathematicians, data scientists. That was the focus. Now we know it's a cultural thing. We got to change. We got to embrace the vision of our company and try to convert that into business. What were the main points you have in your mind today after this conversation? Could you tell me, like, I don't know, keywords? Keyword, anyone, anything? Nothing you got from the conversation today? Really? Okay, so basically, personalization, conversion, all those things are like the last mile of a culture, right? So if you have good culture, the conversion optimization will be completely different if you don't have a good culture, right? So basically, it's not about the operation, what we've done finally. It's about what's your vision with the company, how you engage with your clients. So it's incredible that even in 2020 almost, we are discussing about that 77% of the companies, of the brands could disappear, nobody will care, right? But then we see examples like Bryan told us that he's okay on paying like $20 or $30 additionally, $20 for a T-shirt because of some kind of connection between Bryan and the brand, or what the brand wants to sell. So it is a potential there, and data is what connects that two things. I remember a friend of mine told me, if you're a good manager, you got to be connected to the most strategic things and the most operative things, right? Those two things are important, and actually Bryan just said the same thing. Like, Jeff Bezos is in control of the landing page of Amazon.com. So I think it's a good way of closing the Data-Driven Day 2019. I hope to see you next year here, and I hope the questions for next year are more oriented to culture and how all the things we've done during this year. So, and I'm really tired, so thank you very much for being here. Thank you.